Hey guys, it's Joseph at the top of the episode. Jonathan and I just want to say thank you to everyone who's reached out to us since the last episode with your condolences, well wishes, and positive vibes. We are incredibly thankful to have you as listeners, just as we were incredibly lucky to have Michael as a brother. Your outpouring of support in this time, it means a lot and helps us, find the motivation to keep working on the show. We hope you guys find these episodes every week as enjoyable and at times cathartic as Jonathan and I do when we record together. And I hope wherever Michael is, he's still able to listen to the show. And this one's for you, man. On with the show. Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, we're going to find out who would win in a fight between the dark-themed DC character, Obsidian, and the light energy-themed Marvel character, Photon. Photon being Monica Rambeau, who is currently featured in the WandaVision television series.
Yeah, Monica Rambeau has gone by a few names in the comics. I think right now she's actually going by the name of Spectrum, but she's also gone by Photon, Captain Marvel, Pulsar. We think she's going to go back to Photon just because of the Captain Marvel movie. It was her mother's call sign as a pilot. But it's the character from WandaVision.
Yeah, basically we're going with Photon because we're trying to preempt the eventual name switch back to Photon that they're likely going to be doing within the Marvel comic books. I've already seen that sort of transition already kind of take place. That being said, if she still ends up going by the name Spectrum, then just know that it's the same person as Photon. We're going to learn all about the characters' histories and abilities before running simulations, using each character's statistics to find out who would actually win in a matchup. So look forward to that later on this episode. Before that, we're going to go over the comic book movie news from the past week. We have a few huge news items here, including the news that a Superman reboot is being worked on that will be produced by J.J. Abrams and written by Ta-Nehisi Coates. We've also gotten the official title for the upcoming SpiderMan film that's coming out later this year in December. And we learned that the DC character Blue Beetle has gotten a director for an upcoming live-action film.
Yeah, huge news week. It's pretty cool. How often do you get like Superman and Spider-Man news in the same week? But we'll get to that later. As always, our segment times are in our episode description, so feel free to jump around to whatever part of the episode you want to listen to.
Remember, guys, that this podcast now has a card game out called Dynamic Duel War, and you can get it by joining us on Patreon. On any one of our tiers, you can find information on how to get the game. And our lowest tier is just $2 a month.
If you want to have fun simulating battles between Marvel and DC, check us out on patreon.com/dynamicduel.
And just a quick reminder, guys, to please subscribe to our show if you haven't already. And if you have, please help us grow our podcast audience by leaving a quick rating or review on whatever platform you're listening to us on, or by sharing us with your fellow DC and Marvel fans.
Also, if you're listening to us and you're not following us on Instagram or maybe Facebook or Twitter, please do so. We're particularly proud of our Instagram. It's kind of the best way for podcasts and businesses to kind of brand themselves.
Yeah, we post the dopest stories, the dopest content. Follow us on Instagram. But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize. A No Prize is an award that Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that I personally draw for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question was coming off the news that Danny Elfman would be writing the score for the upcoming Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness sequel, and we asked you guys, what Marvel or DC film has had your favorite musical score and why?
Yeah, we got a number of answers, but we want to share our favorite honorable mentions before announcing this week's No Prize winner.
Our first honorable mention goes to Calvin Mims, who gave the answer of...
Hey guys, I think the best musical score is from the Guardians of the Galaxy, specifically Black Tears. It's really emotional and it grows, and I think the score itself gets overshadowed by the soundtrack, because the soundtrack is also really good, but I think it's one of the best scores in all of Marvel.
The Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, written by Tyler Bates, is definitely one of the MCU's better musical scores. Not a whole lot of them stand out, but in this particular case, I think it did a great job of hitting all the right emotional beats, all the right heroic beats. It was just so moving.
And I totally agree with Calvin that the soundtrack overshadowed the score. Because the soundtrack was like a bestseller for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Awesome Mix Volume 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some great songs on there. James Gunn just killed it with his music choices.
Oh, yeah.
For both the score and the soundtrack.
Our next honorable mention goes to Isaiah Bethune, who said,
Hey twins, it's Isaiah Bethune. I'd have to say that my favorite score for a Marvel or DC movie is probably the original Spider-Man Sam Raimi movie. I just love the original Spider-Man theme.
And we talked about how great the score was when we reviewed that film a couple episodes ago. Danny Elfman totally killed it, invoking like themes of like a spider crawling and swinging and stuff like that. It's a beautiful score, and I think it's definitely one of the more recognizable pieces to come out of the superhero film genre.
Yeah, it definitely gives me a lot of hope for Elfman's work with the upcoming Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness movie. And our final honorable mention goes to Kevin Odilon, who said,
Hi, this is Kevin, Kevin Odilon, or OKev on Instagram. And my favorite musical score is definitely Black Panther, because it was a marriage of African contemporary music and hip-hop music, which was definitely amazing. So yeah, definitely Black Panther.
And it goes without saying that the Black Panther score was an amazing piece of work written by Ludwig Göransson. It was so beautiful in the way that it incorporated traditional African elements, transposed them over a more modern, moving score. I really like this answer.
Yeah, from like T'Challa's theme to like the waterfall theme, I think that's the one I remember the most. To even, like the theme when he was talking with his father in like the spirit realm. Every piece was just like really well done.
And yeah, and mentioning the soundtrack of Guardians of the Galaxy for Calvin's answer, the soundtrack for the Black Panther movie I think was even better. Mainly written and produced by Kendrick Lamar. Damn, that was a good soundtrack. I still listen to it to this day. Every single song on there is so fucking good. Great answer, Kevin. That does it for the honorable mentions. We want to give a huge thank you to Nate, Shane Habizin, Jacob Bell, and Al Gustafson. Thank you guys so much for your answers and for your kind messages as well.
But the winner of this week's No Prize goes to Zachary Hepburn, who said,
Hey guys, Zach Hepburn here, and I have to say my favorite superhero score is the Superman main theme from the original 1978 Superman film. I still use it as my ringtone to this day.
And that's crazy, because so do I. And I think a lot of people do. It's just really iconic. It is like the most inspiring and moving superhero theme in existence, I think. And not just that song, but the entire score by John Williams for that film. From Krypton to the romantic love theme, it all fits the character to a T, and it was just really moving. John Williams is one of the best masters of his craft, so it's no surprise that this one gets the win.
Yeah, the fact that people are still using it and is still part of the popular culture 40 years later is just a testament to how great the score is. But the Black Panther score won an Academy Award. Did this one?
I mean, it was nominated. It didn't win, which is bullshit.
That's what I thought. So great answer, Zachary Hepburn. You win this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news. Okay, so late last week, in what is probably like the biggest, most surprising news that I've encountered in a long while, Warner Brothers has decided to reboot Superman with J.J. Abrams producing and Ta-Nehisi Coates writing. Now, it shouldn't have been such a huge surprise because if you've kind of been following what's going on behind the scenes with Henry Cavill and Warner Brothers and the whole like multiverse angle that they're really starting to push right now.
Yeah, and the deals with J.J. Abrams regarding Warner Brothers films and HBO Max.
Yeah, last year, Warner Brothers brokered a $500 million deal with J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot Studio, in part to kind of help establish and solidify a new DC universe, sort of like Kevin Feige. That was the rumor, at least. We knew that J.J. Abrams was going to be working on some Justice League Dark shows and movies, including Constantine. And it was always kind of speculated that he would be working on Superman. He has a history with the character. He wrote a screenplay for a Brett Ratner film, or a McGee film, I think it was, like years and years ago. But now it's official. We know that he's written like an overarching treatment for several films, and it looks like he's brought on Ta-Nehisi Coates to write the film. Ta-Nehisi Coates, of course, is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who's also written a few comics for Marvel, including Black Panther and Captain America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the current writer on Captain America.
Now, there had been rumors for a while that J.J. Abrams was kind of mulling over whether or not he wanted to bring back Henry Cavill for his Superman film, and it looks like that's not going to happen. According to The Hollywood Reporter, J.J. Abrams and the studio are looking to cast a person of color as Superman.
And this rumor, I think, is a big part of this news. Now, within the DC comic books, there have been several black Supermen, correct?
Yeah. In the Earth 2 comics and the New 52 reboot, there was Val Zod. And during the Final Crisis pre-Flashpoint, Superman joined a team of various Superman from across the multiverse, one of which was named Kelvin Ellis, sort of like Kal-El.
Okay, and he was the Superman that became president, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So who knows if they're going to go with Kelvin Ellis or Val Zod or maybe someone entirely new.
Or if it'll be a black Clark Kent.
That's also a possibility.
Now, the idea that they're doing this, I mean, it shows that they're definitely going all in on this multiverse, like they did with the Joker. Is that what you want to see?
Well, I mean, the Joker is probably, a really fair comparison. Like, no one asked for a Joker origin film. When I heard about it, I hated the idea, but that movie ended up turning out really great. I can't quite say the same for films like Birds of Prey. No one asked for a Harley Quinn Birds of Prey film, and that movie was not that great. So I gotta say, when I first heard this news, I was literally banging my head against the wall. It's not what I wanted. I don't think it's what most DC fans wanted. I think there's a lot of fans of Henry Cavill out there that would have loved to have seen him be in a Man of Steel sequel. That said, Ta-Nehisi Coates is a really good writer, and J.J. Abrams is really good at reboots. Based on the reaction of the Supergirl news, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people excited that they will be getting a version of Superman that they're not used to. That said, we still don't know if J.J. Abrams will be shepherding in like maybe an Earth 2 continuity, and maybe like the regular Snyderverse continuity will still be ongoing, and we could still see Henry Cavill Superman in films like Shazam or Black Adam. It's still too early to tell, but I always think that people are always going to clamor for like the traditional version of the character, myself included.
I kind of had to frame this news in a way that made sense to me as a Marvel fan. And the analogy that I came up with was after the time the first Captain America movie came out, Captain America the First Avenger, that was a divisive film. You know, you had fans that really liked it. You had fans that didn't appreciate the style. Same thing with Man of Steel. But Marvel Studios, instead of balking at this divisiveness, they gave us The Winter Soldier, which was a fantastic sequel with Steve Rogers. Warner Brothers is a very, very indecisive studio, and they had the potential here to give us a Man of Steel sequel that was as good as The Winter Soldier. By going down this route, it's essentially the equivalent of Marvel instead choosing to make a film about Isaiah Bradley, who was the Black Captain America from the comics. Now, Isaiah Bradley's story in the comics is amazing. It's incredible. It would make a fantastic movie. But I'm glad that we got the Winter Soldier sequel. I'm glad that Marvel didn't give up on the franchise despite the divisiveness over the Captain America the First Avenger film.
Yeah, and now that they've made a really good Captain America film, several good Captain America films, like if they announced a new Captain America film with Isaiah Bradley, that would be cool.
Yeah.
But the important thing is that they nailed the character first. They gave us a product that everyone loved. They haven't done that yet with Henry Cavill's Superman. And I really feel like they're abandoning him, which kind of hurts my heart, because the guy is cool, albeit difficult to work with, allegedly in some circles.
Using that analogy, I said, I could understand as a Marvel fan how DC fans could be upset by this news. It doesn't mean you're going to get a bad movie, it just means that you're not necessarily going to get what you want. And ultimately, that's what's most disappointing, and ultimately, I think that's what's going to hurt the studio. I don't get what Warner Brothers is doing, not building their shared universe like what Marvel has, because there's so much potential there, and fans know that, but for some reason, WB executives don't.
Honestly, part of me thinks they wouldn't have announced this news at this point if the Superman and Lois show didn't get such great reaction. I saw the pilot. It was really good. If people wanted their classic Superman, they could go to that show, albeit, it's a little bit different because Superman has 2 teenage sons. But Tyler Hoechlin plays such a good Superman that I think a lot of fans will love. This news was actually broken by a small website called Shadow and Act. And in that article, they have quotes from both Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams talking about how, they're going to take Superman in a new direction that we haven't seen before. So I guess, as fans of the character, we're all just kind of along for the ride. And let's see how this goes. I'm hesitant to poo-poo on it too much because, again, things like the Joker were really good. And I keep kind of just going to that, to comfort myself in a way. Because when good filmmakers work on projects, even though they're different, the films can still turn out really good. So we'll see. I will definitely miss Henry Cavill, as the main actor in the role. and I hope he sticks around. I'm really looking forward to seeing him in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and maybe the responses and reactions to that will kind of, steer future decisions by Warner Brothers and AT&T. AT&T seems to really like Zack Snyder, but who knows? And this brings us to our question of the week. Do you want J.J. Abrams' DC films to be a part of Zack Snyder's established DCEU, or do you want a complete reboot with new versions of the characters?
It's a big question. We may have to up the time limit from 20 seconds to 30 seconds, which I think I'll do regardless with our site's voicemail function.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to everyone's answers. Please record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Again, the message can be up to 30 seconds, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media. Be sure to answer before March 6th.
In other news, the Spider-Man movie has announced its new official title. After being jerked around for a bit with the cast regarding supposedly official titles like Spider-Man Phone Home, Spider-Man Home Slice, and Spider-Man Homewrecker, which I thought were pretty funny, we learned that the real actual title of the movie is Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, you and I have kind of gone on and on about the usage of the word home in these titles. It never really made sense to us, starting back with Homecoming.
Right.
That being said, No Way Home is probably the most interesting out of all of them. The implication is that Spider-Man can't go home, right? But is that referring to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, or is it perhaps referencing Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's versions of the character who may be trapped in Tom Holland's dimension from the multiverse?
Now, of course, Tom Holland has recently been denying the rumors that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield will be in the movie, but we all know that's bullshit because they have contracts.
Right. The other Spider-Man are definitely going to be in the movie. I think sometimes they just tell Tom Holland to deny everything since he's so good at spoiling everything.
Exactly.
But yeah, we know that also Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina and a ton of other characters from the previous films will also be in the movie, including Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock. So Tom Holland is definitely giving us the runaround. Just look at what he did with Phone Home. A big part of this marketing campaign is going to be misdirection because they don't want to give away spoilers because I think, there's going to be a lot happening here. I think we mentioned before that we were both skeptical that this movie was still going to make its December release date, but it's looking more and more like that actually is the case.
Well, I mean, that all depends on whether or not Black Widow comes out on time, right?
Possibly.
Or maybe not, because this is a Sony film.
Right. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
In our last bit of news, it was announced that Angel Manuel Soto is going to direct a film about Blue Beetle, the Jaime Reyes version of the character, not the Ted Kord version. So it's going to be DC Comics' first Latino superhero-led film, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I love this. Now, we've reported before that a Blue Beetle movie was in the works. I feel like that was years ago, and nothing really came of it. There was no development until now. Announcing the director is a huge step in the pre-production process.
Yeah, it kind of seems like with this news, this will be the first DC film we get after all of the films that were presented at the DC Fandom. And I'm sure we'll learn more about this film during this year's DC Fandom. I'm not too familiar with the director, Angel Manuel Soto. He's directed a lot of shorts, none of which I've seen. But it kind of seems like DC is kind of going the Black Panther route with this film, trying to bring in as many Latin filmmakers to work on a project focusing on a Latin superhero, as it were. Which makes sense because the Latin community is, I think, the number one movie-going demographic in the US. And I know DC is really popular in South America, so I'm not surprised that they're going this route.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Marvel to do something like that. The only Latin character in the MCU is Luis.
That's true.
Played by Michael Pena, There's a horrible misrepresentation there. We have a lot of white heroes, a lot of black heroes. We're getting a few Asian characters. Although I guess the MCU is getting another Latin superhero in America Chavez with the upcoming Doctor Strange movie.
That's true. Yep. There you go.
Finally, we're getting represented.
Yeah, seeing as how Joseph and I are both Latin, this is important to us. It's really cool to see this.
Yeah, now I can finally cosplay as someone other than Luis, even though I don't really look anything like him. We'll be sure to keep you guys updated on any other announcements regarding this film. Hopefully it doesn't become like a New God situation with Ava DuVernay, where the director is announced and then just nothing happens with the project. But I think that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into our main event, where we find out who would win in a fight between the JSA character, Obsidian, and the Avengers character, Photon. Okay, Obsidian versus Photon. Again, Photon is Monica Rambeau, the character who's currently in the WandaVision series. She has also gone by the names Spectrum, Pulsar, and Captain Marvel within the comics. But for the purposes of this duel, we're going to call her Photon because, one, that's my favorite name of hers that she's ever had, and I thought it was bullshit how she lost it in the comics. And two, it does seem like both the MCU and Marvel Comics are steering her back toward that codename. And in order to keep the title of this episode as relevant for as long as possible, we're going with Photon. But it's Monica Rambeau.
Yeah, and it's an apt name considering, it deals with light, and she's going up against Obsidian, who is a character all about darkness. Now, there were a number of people we could actually have pit against Monica Rambeau, like the Ray, or even like Jade, Obsidian's sister. But we decided to go with Obsidian because we felt his power levels and power set was comparable to Photon's without being identical to it.
With the final episode of WandaVision coming out next week, I think it'll be exciting for people to learn the comic book backstory of Monica Rambeau's character. So let's get into it. If you've never listened to one of our Duel episodes before, the way we determine a winner between these two characters is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using their statistics. Now, a Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model that's used to determine outcomes through random sampling.
In our case, it randomizes statistics along a normal distribution, which is a bell curve, as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters we use are based on the official Marvel power grid, and we use that criteria to extrapolate the DC character's stats. We've included some additional stat categories of our own, such as range, damage potential, versatility, and perception, in order to create a more complete and robust simulation.
Running these 1,000 simulations gives us a percentage of wins for each character, and we declare the one with the higher percentage to be the ultimate victor, given that they're more likely to win any given battle. No character ever wins 100% of the time. Comics have shown that there's always a way for Batman to defeat Superman. We feel our method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the comic book stories.
And we use this method because it was the least subjective, most unbiased way to determine who would win. Of course, we were both heavily biased toward our respective allegiances, and instead of debating these matches forever, we just let the math decide for us. So there's no fan votes here, and no relying on just feats.
Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations we run would play out beat for beat.
Yeah, I think it's my turn to give my character's backstory first, so let me tell you all about Obsidian. Now, Todd Rice was conceived to the Golden Age Green Lantern Alan Scott and the villainous Thorn during their brief marriage. You can of course learn more about Alan Scott in our Green Lantern vs. Iceman episode. Todd and his twin sister Jennifer were put up for adoption at birth and raised in separate adoptive families, unaware of the other's existence. Todd, unfortunately, had an abusive upbringing, and while attempting to locate his real parents in his late teens, he met his twin sister Jennifer, and his powers manifested. Together, the two developed suspicions as to their possible true parentage and tried to join the Justice Society of America, which you can learn more about in our JSA vs. Fantastic Four episode.
Alan Scott is kind of a shitty father, huh?
Well, Alan Scott was not aware of their birth. He didn't know he had kids, as Thorn had left him before learning that she was pregnant.
Okay.
The twin siblings were denied admission into the JSA, along with several other young superpowered individuals, many of them the children and proteges of existing JSA members. Todd, Jennifer, and the others who were rejected decided to form their own superhero team, Infinity Inc., and Todd took on the name Obsidian based on his powers of darkness. Jennifer became the hero Jade, as she had inherited her parents' powers of green light energy and chlorokinesis. After Infinity Inc. fought and defeated a mind-controlled JSA, it was confirmed that Alan Scott and Thorn were indeed the parents of Obsidian and Jade. During the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, where the universe-destroying Anti-Monitor and his shadow demons threatened to destroy the entire multiverse, Obsidian proved exceptionally useful during that time, as the shadow demons could not hurt him in his shadow form. Not long after the crisis, the Infinity Inc.'s founder, Starman, was killed and the team disbanded. Obsidian and fellow former Infinity Inc. member Nuklon both joined the Justice League of America, during which time Obsidian confessed to having romantic feelings for Nuklon. Nuklon, who would later go by the name Atom Smasher, did not reciprocate those feelings, however. Due to the rejection, his past abuse, and the inheritance of mental illness from his mother, among other things, Obsidian fell into a suicidal depression, though due to the nature of his powers, he was unable to injure himself.
Whoa.
On top of that, the energies that fueled Obsidian's powers came from an extra-dimensional realm known as the Shadowlands, a psychic plane from which nightmares come, which allowed him to see the darkness within others, unwillingly.
Yikes.
After several of his Justice League teammates died, the League was disbanded. Now, despite years of therapy, the dissolution of the League was the final straw for Obsidian's sanity, and he began plotting revenge against his stepfather and Ellen Scott for his abuse, his powers, and ultimately, his life. Obsidian first attacked his stepfather, James Rice, by absorbing all of the shadows within his hometown of Milwaukee. Obsidian used those shadows to help spread his darkness over the entire world, eliminating all light upon it. Alan Scott and the rest of the JSA were able to stop Obsidian thanks in part to the sacrifice of James Rice. Defeated, Obsidian retreated to the Shadowlands where he stayed for some time. Obsidian later re-emerged from the shadows, partnered with the evil sorcerer Mordru and vengeful spirit Eclipso to destroy the JSA, during which time it was revealed that Obsidian's descent into madness and evil was largely due to the manipulations of a former JSA villain, the shadow sorcerer Ian Karkull, who influenced Obsidian from the Shadowlands in an attempt to gain power and become its ruler. Obsidian's darkness powers, in fact, were the result of his father, Alan Scott, being bombarded with dark energies during a battle between the JSA and Karkull long before Obsidian was born. Obsidian was able to eventually conquer Karkull, and in the process cured his mental imbalance. Coming to terms with his homosexuality, Obsidian retired from superheroics, passing the years with his boyfriend, a district attorney named Damon Matthews. It wasn't until the death of his sister Jade during the Infinite Crisis storyline that Obsidian returned to superheroics and rejoined the JSA, serving as a guard of the team's mansion headquarters known as the Brownstone. Eventually, a traitor within the team's ranks, the All-American Kid, later revealed to be the villain Kid Carnival, caused Obsidian to degenerate into an egg of pure darkness that acted as a fuel source for a machine that depowered all of the superpowered beings on the planet.
Wait, an egg?
Yeah, like an egg shape of just darkness.
Okay, I was thinking like an actual egg.
No. With the help of a time-traveling Mr. Terrific, who you can learn more about in our Mr. Terrific vs. Forge episode, Obsidian was able to prevent Kid Carnival from accomplishing his plan. During the conclusion of the Blackest Night event, Jade was resurrected by the white light of life while on the Green Lantern planet base of Oa. She inadvertently returned to Earth with the Starheart, the mystic energy source of Alan Scott's Green Lantern power, which possessed Alan and Obsidian while corrupting all other magic users on Earth. Jade attempted to free her brother from the Starheart's possession, but the two ended up merging into one being, serving as the ultimate host for the Starheart and becoming too powerful for the combined might of the JSA and JLA to defeat. With the help of the White Light of Life, however, Jade was able to separate herself from Obsidian and heal her father, who was able to then absorb and contain the Starheart threat. Obsidian and Jade, however, were from then on no longer able to be near one another as their bodies would automatically merge once again and risk the Starheart from possessing them once more. Now, post-Flashpoint, during which DC's continuity was reset, Obsidian was recently reintroduced into the primary DC universe after Dr. Manhattan brought back the characters of the JSA as he had erased them from existence prior. Powers-wise, Obsidian is the host of the Shadowlands, a primordial void and psychic plane of darkness. By merging with his own shadow, Obsidian becomes intangible, gains enhanced strength, and is able to travel and teleport through darkness. He can fly, can grow in size by absorbing darkness and shadows, and can create dark energy constructs, such as swords and weaponry. He's able to see darkness within others and can expose them to their own evil and nightmares by absorbing them into the Shadowlands, which drives them insane. He can even control others by possessing their shadows and merging with them. And that's Obsidian.
He reminds me a lot of Cloak from Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Cloak is actually a ripoff of Obsidian. Big surprise.
Do you know that he came out after?
Obsidian came out in 1983.
Oh shit, Cloak and Dagger came out in 1982.
No!
What a ripoff Obsidian is. Holy shit.
I
DC,
take it all
man.
back.
They'll never learn. They'll never learn.
That said, Obsidian and Jade could totally stomp on Cloak and Dagger.
They certainly sound more powerful, but not more powerful than Photon. Let me tell you all about Monica Rambeau's history. So just like Gambit from our last episode, Monica Rambeau was also born in New Orleans, Louisiana. Her parents were the firefighter Frank Rambeau and seamstress Maria Rambeau. Strong-willed and analytical, Monica grew up to become a police officer, rising through the ranks to become a lieutenant in the New Orleans Harbor Patrol. After repeatedly being passed over for a promotion to captain by her superior, Monica was contacted by a nuclear scientist who believed his research in harnessing extra-dimensional energy was being misused in a secret lab within a Roxxon oil drilling rig off the New Orleans coast. Investigating the matter, Monica discovered a dangerous energy weapon that was part of a plot to take over the United States. In her attempt to destroy the machine as it powered up, she was bombarded by extra-dimensional energy, granting her the ability to transform into and discharge any form of energy within the electromagnetic spectrum. Monica was dubbed Captain Marvel by the press for her heroic act, since one of the rig's armed guards mistakenly referred to her as a captain, and the name stuck. This was a few months after the death of the Kree alien warrior Mar-Vell, so the name was available, but Monica's origin actually had nothing to do with the original Captain Marvel or Carol Danvers, who currently goes by that name, whom you can learn more about in our Supergirl vs. Captain Marvel episode. Actually, Marvel's television show Cloak and Dagger heavily borrowed elements from Monica's origin, including the New Orleans setting and the Roxxon oil rig energy explosion, but that's fine because Monica got a cooler origin for the MCU.
Yeah, that was pretty cool in WandaVision.
Anyway, her powers were initially unstable, having absorbed too much of the extra-dimensional energy, which threatened to explode from her like a megaton nuclear bomb. She traveled to New York City to ask the Fantastic Four for help, but the Thing referred her to the Avengers since Reed Richards was out. At the Avengers Mansion, Iron Man was able to siphon away her excess energy just before she exploded, and realizing her potential, he brought her onto the Avengers team as a member in training. Monica graduated to full-fledged member after helping the team defeat the Ant-Man villain Egghead, and she helped the team fight against the likes of the Beyonder, King the Conqueror, and Baron Zemo's Masters of Evil. She also assisted Doctor Strange and the Scarlet Witch against the mystic vampire villain Dracula. Monica became such an adept Avenger, she even led the team for a brief while, before losing most of her powers after an incident in which she turned into a lightning bolt to battle an Atlantean villain over the ocean and accidentally dispersed her atoms too much across the water's surface. She left the Avengers, though occasionally helped out as an active reserve member. Monica regained her full abilities during an adventure in space where she was recruited alongside Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers, Black Bolt of the Inhumans, Hyperion from the Squadron Supreme, and Icarus of the Eternals. It was around this time that Monica first met Genis-Vell, the artificially created son of Mar-Vell, who's also going by the name Captain Marvel. Though Monica resented this, she ended up conceding the name out of respect for Mar-Vell's legacy and adopted the new moniker of Photon. Monica resumed her reserve duties for a while, dividing her time between being a local hero for New Orleans and a scout at the Avengers Deep Space Station monitoring for extraterrestrial threats. Later, Genis-Vell, deciding he wanted to establish himself apart from his father's identity, quit using the name Captain Marvel and began using the alias Photon, which was some bullshit. Genis-Vell is just such a dickhead character.
He kept taking her name.
Yeah, it's so stupid. This led Monica to change her superhero name to Pulsar. I don't think she should have had to do that, but I digress. She then briefly joined a new superhero team called Next Wave, alongside other heroes such as Elsa Bloodstone, Boom Boom, and Machine Man. During the superhuman civil war, in which the US government made it illegal to perform crime-fighting duties without their sanction, Monica ended up registering as a superhero, but she still sided with Captain America to fight for those who felt the Registration Act was wrong. You can learn more about this in our Justice League vs. Avengers episode. She developed a tight-knit bond with many of her fellow female heroes, especially Firestar, Hellcat, and Black Cat. It was revealed to that friend group that Monica was once romantically involved with Brother Voodoo, whom you can learn more about in our Constantine vs. Brother Voodoo episode. Deciding that she didn't really like the name Pulsar, she later changed her name to Spectrum and helped defend New York City from an attack by Thanos that occurred while the primary Avengers were out in space. she and the other heroes that joined efforts to save the city formed a new team called the Mighty Avengers, which included Luke Cage, Spider-Man, White Tiger, She-Hulk, Falcon, and Blue Marvel. Monica began a relationship with Blue Marvel, which lasted through the dissolution of the Mighty Avengers. And upon his suggestion, she joined a reformation of the Ultimates team, which focused on cosmic and extra-dimensional threats. Though Monica had occasionally worked with Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel before on the Avengers, it was during this time in the Ultimates that their close friendship really developed. Powers-wise, Photon can transform her body into and emit any form of energy along the electromagnetic spectrum, an ability she can use for a variety of effects. This includes flight at speeds up to the speed of light. She can become intangible and phase through solid matter when composed of energy such as X-rays. She can render herself as a bright, blinding flare of light, or render herself invisible. She can turn into electricity and shoot out lightning, or turn into microwave radiation and emit heat blasts. Photon can even match energy signatures and absorb external energy, provided that she can match its wavelength on the electromagnetic spectrum. She can also match with external energy to travel along it, such as radio waves, to the energy source. She can detect heat signatures using infrared radiation and do some CSI shit, such as detect bodily fluids through ultraviolet light.
Ew.
In addition to all these effects, she also has firearm and hand-to-hand combat training from her time as a police lieutenant.
So she could go intangible just like Obsidian.
Yeah.
This is going to be hard. How are they even going to hurt each other?
Oh, Monica has her ways.
Now, allegedly, Obsidian does have a weakness to light, but it's very inconsistent because I've read that he's weak to light, but I've also seen numerous examples of him shielding himself and protecting others from like light energy and light rays. So,
I mean, we'll just say that he's weak to light, though, right?
No, I don't think so, because that only came from one source, actually. So,
all right. So now that we got their histories and abilities out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner of this match is determined by simulations, not the speculation, but it is fun to imagine how the fight could play out.
We don't set any rules for this match, other than the characters don't know anything about each other going in, except that the other character is a threat that needs to be put down. And we say that they start off about 50 meters apart in an environment that has no bearing on the match itself, because we don't take stats for the environment.
Yeah, plus certain characters have advantages in some environments over others, and we want these characters to win on their own merits. So let's get into it. The characters meet on the battlefield. Who goes first? I'm going to say that Photon goes first because she can travel at the speed of light. So she's going to fly up into the air, and she's going to transform her body into electrical energy. And she's going to zap her electrical form down at Obsidian as like this powerful lightning bolt.
A lightning bolt?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Obsidian sees her like transform into electricity in the air. So right when she does that, he creates like a lightning rod nearby, like not too close to him, but nearby. So as she's like coming down, her body's just like naturally attracted to that lightning rod, and she just gets absorbed into the ground.
That's pretty good. But before she actually becomes grounded and, gets her energy dispersed along the ground, I'm going to say that she turns into X-ray energy and she phases into the floor. And while she's underground, she travels directly underneath Obsidian and rockets up, delivering a powerful energy uppercut.
An energy uppercut. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so Obsidian, he's probably knocked down to the ground from the attack, but as he hits the ground, he just falls right into his own shadow, just merging with it and becoming a flat shadow, in which he travels along the ground over to where Photon landed, and he just travels up her leg, around her neck, and just wraps around it, choking her out.
That's creepy.
It's super creepy.
All right, so in order to escape this chokeout, she becomes intangible and she slips out of his shadow form grip, and she flies into the air and just blasts him with this focused laser beam.
Okay, I mean, but Obsidian is also intangible in his shadow form, so he's not physically damaged. If anything, he's pained by the light itself. Mm-hmm. So since he's in pain, he just quickly, right away, he just vanishes into the Shadowlands, okay?
He can teleport?
Yeah. So as Monica, is like looking around for him, a dark portal will open up behind her, and Obsidian emerges and just hurls this battering ram construct right into her back, just sending her flying.
Okay, I didn't know he could teleport. So she gets knocked down to the ground, but as she hits, she turns into microwave energy and flies back up and just bombards Obsidian with oppressive heat waves that set him on fire.
Okay. All right. So he probably falls to the ground on fire, but he can't physically be burned. It's probably difficult for him to transform back into a shadow form with all the light from the fire. But once he hits the ground, he just stops, drops, and rolls to get the flames off of him. At which point, he's going to go back into a shadow form. Not flat this time, three-dimensional. He's just all dark. And he just charges Photon. He's super strong in this form, so he just pummels the hell out of her.
To that, I say, how is Obsidian going to pummel what he can't see? Because as Obsidian flies toward her, Photon turns into an invisible radio wave form. So he can't see her or even touch her because she's intangible. And while he's like swinging at nothing, looking for her, Photon becomes tangible again and punches him right in his face.
But again, his shadow form is intangible. And radio waves don't emit light, so that does nothing.
How can he punch things but not get punched?
Don't try to understand it. It's Shadowland physics.
He's like a ghost.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, exactly. This is a tough match. They could both become intangible. All right, so she becomes tangible again to punch him, but right when she becomes visible and tangible, he flies down and merges with her shadow on the ground, possessing her and showing her all of the evil that's inside of her.
Like what evil, though? Like freaking Monica Rambeau is a saint. She doesn't have any evil that's going to make her depressed.
She's got something.
She's not a villain that could be manipulated like that. Okay, whatever. So she probably sees something that might make her a little bit sad, but not like how he affects bad guys. And in order to expel her shadow, Photon turns into a bright light, like brighter than any lighthouse, just blinding and completely overtaking all the shadows within the environment, expelling Obsidian from her shadow, from her vicinity, and then she directs all this light energy directly at him, just obliterating him from existence.
That was a good move. Yeah, she probably would force him out of his shadow form if he was possessing her shadow and she no longer had one. But as he got knocked back, right before she blasted him, Obsidian created this massive wall of darkness in front of him to block all that bright light. And the brighter the light, the darker and harsher the shadows, okay?
Okay.
So he takes this massive shadow from this massive wall that he created, and he absorbs it and uses it to grow bigger, okay? And he grows so big that he just covers the entire environment in darkness.
Well, then Photon just turns brighter.
But she realizes at that moment that she was actually absorbed into Obsidian as he expanded, and that she's now in the Shadowlands, where she sees her deepest and darkest nightmare unfold. Probably like Genisvel appearing and introducing himself as Spectrum. She's like, no!
That is her worst nightmare. Just Genisvel constantly taking her name. Well, okay, so she sees this nightmare vision of Genisvel doing this to her, and this pisses her off. It angers her into turning into a light as bright as the freaking sun, just obliterating not only the vision of Genisvel, but also Obsidian from within.
You can't do that because Obsidian is like the whole Shadowland dimension. And as long as there's shadows and darkness, as long as they exist, the Shadowlands exists, okay? But that probably does hurt Obsidian pretty badly, not physically, but he's in a lot of pain.
Yeah, enough pain to die.
I don't know, Obsidian's been through a lot. I think he could bear through it. I think she's just gonna end up trapped inside of him forever. And that's it. That's the match.
She's as bright as the sun, dude. I think she gets out of it. But we'll find out, won't we? By running 1000 Monte Carlo simulations on these characters using their stats and finding out what scenario would actually happen and which character actually wins.
That was kind of a tough match. I didn't realize that both characters could go intangible. So It's always kind of hard for them to hurt one another whenever that happens.
Yeah, it's always hard to find ways for intangible characters to hurt each other. I know we ran into that problem with our Martian Manhunter and Vision duel.
Yeah.
But these guys still had enough tricks up their sleeve to make this match interesting. Their stats also made it interesting because they weren't too dissimilar, but enough in certain areas to make this a little bit unpredictable. Like we said, Photon was faster.
Yeah, she has a higher movement speed compared to Obsidian.
And she's also a more trained fighter with her time in the police force.
We also said that she's slightly smarter than Obsidian, considering, his superhero career basically began as a late teen. But we did say that Obsidian is more durable than Monica, considering he can reconstitute his form if he's been injured.
Right, yeah. When the characters do get hit, Monica takes it less well than Obsidian.
We did give Obsidian the strength edge because he is slightly stronger in his shadow form.
But in everything else, they were comparable, including their evasiveness,
including their damage level and perception and versatility.
So all that considered, I have no idea who the hell's going to win this one. I want to say it's going to be Photon, just because light triumphs over dark.
Our social media followers actually agree with you, but just barely. This is one of the closest polls we've ever had. Between Facebook and Instagram, an average of 52% of our social media followers gave the win to Photon. But honestly, I think that's just because the character's in WandaVision, and that show's, currently ongoing right now.
But Obsidian was in Legends of Tomorrow, right?
Yeah, he was played by Lance Hendrickson, which was pretty cool.
Oh, he was Bishop in the Alien movie, right?
Yeah, Aliens, yeah.
That's cool. Anyway, let's get the results.
So the winner of the match between Obsidian and Photon is Obsidian.
What?
But not by much.
Really?
Yeah, he won 598 of the 1,000 matches, as compared to Photon's 402.
Was it the strength advantage that put him over the edge, I wonder?
It was durability and strength, it looks like, according to this web graph.
I guess that makes sense because, yeah, Monica is faster, but he can teleport. So, only marginally so. And she is a better fighter, but he's also had some fight experience with the JSA. So, yeah, I could see this going down that way.
It's also not surprising considering, Obsidian has gone toe-to-toe with, the entire JSA, the entire JLA before. He's actually a pretty big threat.
Photon is a pretty big threat on her own, too. Okay?
Really?
Don't discount her with that.
Yeah. It looks like this time darkness beats the light. I don't know what to say.
No! That's lame. Well, darkness may beat light this time, but WandaVision still beats Legends of Tomorrow in quality. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters about
I guess you got to
this.
find comfort somewhere. That's an odd one, but sure.
It's a stretch, but go with it. Go with it.
Yeah, all right. Honestly, I'm glad Obsidian won. I didn't know too much about the character going into this. He's been through a lot, so I'm glad he gets the W.
And I'm really excited to see how Monica Rambeau's story plays out in the final episode of WandaVision, which comes out next week. And this episode will lead into our review of that show. So hopefully you guys have been watching WandaVision because we're going to break it down in our next episode. But that does it for this duel. Let us know what you thought about the results by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Again, Instagram is the best out of those three.
Yeah.
So if you have an Instagram account, follow Dynamic Duel Podcast. Well, you can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you can find a link to our Patreon page where we offer bonus content and our very own Marvel vs. DC card game called Dynamic Duel War. Check it out right after this episode. Our lowest tier is only $2 a month.
And also on dynamicduel.com is a link to our merch store where we sell t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and more with our Dynamic Duel No Prize artwork. Now, Jonathan, who are you drawing this week?
I'm actually going to draw Vision this week.
Oh, really?
He doesn't tie into this episode, but I want to make sure I have updated drawings of both Vision and a Scarlet Witch for the next episode.
Yeah, that'll be great. But that does it for this episode. We want to remind everyone to please subscribe to our show if you haven't, or please leave a rating or review on your platform of choice. Sharing the show on social media or in person is also a big help for us.
We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers Ken Johnson, Jace Crump, John Starosky, John Speas, Isaiah Bethune, Zachary Hepburn, and John Bechinina for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Up, and away.
True believers.